and welcome to episode 26 in the series. For this episode I am covering a book on a famous railway link and will also be paying tribute to one of its authors who recently passed away. For episode 26 I am covering Changing Trains, which was co-authored by the late Phil Belbin and the recently deceased David Burke and published in 1982. It provides in text, photos and illustrations a history on the first 100 years of the rail connection between Melbourne and Sydney, which was established in 1883. The book is a hardcover edition with an excellent painting by the late Phil Belbin of Victorian Streamline S-Class Pacific S300 Matthew Flinders with the broad gauge Spirit of Progress, next to New South Wales locomotive 3640 with the standard gauge Melbourne Limited at Albury in 1939. It symbolises that even though the connection between the capitals was established in 1883, reality was it was broken by the difference in track gauges of the respective states. The painting only appears on the dust jacket, the actual hardcover of the book being plain brown, with the title printed on the spine. Inside the book details the history of the connection from its establishment in 1883, development of the passenger and freight services, the introduction of the Sydney and Melbourne Expresses, the introduction of the Victorian Spirit of Progress in 1937, and the New South Wales C38 class locomotives on the Melbourne Limited, and finally the coming of the standard gauge between Albury and Melbourne, and the introduction of the Southern Aurora in 1962. This book complements the information provided in Keith Turton's book 6.5 Inches from Destiny, which was reviewed way back in episode 1 and is referenced by this book. All photos are reproduced in black and white. The illustrations are all reproduced in colour and are mostly the works of the late Phil Belbin, with a couple provided by Commonwealth Engineering and one by Helen Burke. I personally am a fan of Phil's work, which includes a rather interesting painting of H220 Heavy Harry crossing the Murray River at Albury with the Spirit of Progress in July 1947. Heavy Harry sometimes hauled the train when one of the S-Class was not available. This book is a worthwhile addition for rail fans or those with an interest in the history of the Melbourne-Sydney rail corridor. Copies are only available second-hand these days, so check your usual supplier of old railway titles or contact me for a list. Before ending this episode, I would like to pay a small tribute to one of the book's authors. David Burke is well known for his involvement in the early days of the preservation efforts of Puffing Billy. David, through his connection with the Young Sun newspaper, organised a series of workings on the former Victorian narrow gauge Gembrook line between Upper Ferntree Gully and Belgrave in 1954 to farewell the line. History shows that the line operates today between Belgrave and Gembrook as the famous Puffing Billy. David's connection does not stop there, as he also penned a book, Come Midnight Monday, which was made into a TV series in 1982. Other books by David, or including his work, include Kings of the Iron Horse, which I reviewed in episode 3, Railways of Australia, Great Steam Trains of Australia, Man of Steam, With Iron Rails, Roaring Through the Twenties, Running Out of Steam, The Book of Australian Trains, 30 Days on Australian Railways, American Steam on Australian Rails, and Saving Puffing Billy, to mention a few. David passed away on the 17th of March 2018. Vale David Burke. Well, that wraps up episode 26 in the series. I hope you enjoyed it. Episode 27 will cover a book on a steam locomotive class from South Australia. As always, thank you for watching.